Okay, let's just continue on here a little bit. Only about 20 minutes or so left. There's again our designed logo. You will see Sam's beautiful design in the middle with the tree of life, with the Adam, and with the dinosaur. And all of those things were very good. And the point we've been making over and over again is part of God's good design included the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and that is defined as very good by God at the end of the sixth day. And again, a reminder that Eve wasn't there when God told Adam this wasn't a tree he was allowed to eat. That's important because later on, Eve obviously hears about it from Adam, but she misquotes it to the serpent. Satan had already overstepped the line, or that may have been the first time he stepped the line. We just don't know. But he's already there tackling Eve and trying to get her to cross the line. And he succeeds. And when Adam has to actually talk to his wife after that, you find the whole basis of marriage there. Adam could have said about Eve, I'm sorry, Lord, she's sinned, she's going to die, and need a new one. We never think of that. Or he could have got on his knees and said, Lord, as the sinless Son of God made in your image, I intercede on behalf of my fallen bride. And you can see why the Bible portrays Adam as a type of Christ. That's what he was until he sinned. When Jesus came, he did exactly that for us, and he continues to intercede with his Father on behalf of his fallen bride, the church. Now, we've got plenty of things that happen to show how this comes up. We have elections, you have elections in America, in England, etc. And most of the election issues are really moral issues about where will you draw the line on funds to the Middle East, on funds for weapons, on supporting hospitals that do abortions, on homosexual, gay rights, etc. So let's just pick the sex line. Where do you draw the line on these issues which are legislated in our current world? Do you have sex after marriage? Sex before marriage? Yes, mum and dad, you have to talk about this stuff with your kids. Do you have sex in a homosexual fashion? Do you have sex with animals? Do you murder your partner? I mean, come on, the spiders do it. She mates with him and then she bites his head off. Is that the pattern we use? Now, if you drew the line there, why? Because many people in today's world, particularly since the 1950s sexual revolution, would have now drawn it that way. They see nothing wrong with living together, and this includes many people going to church. Yes, mum and dad wouldn't have done that, but things have evolved, things have changed. We now live together until we know whether we're right for one another, then we go and get married. And of course, you know that homosexuality has been seeking privileges and rights that they never would have once had. In fact, here in Australia, our biggest airline is in a whole heap of financial and political mess because they've made it a policy about homosexual hiring. They've made it a policy to interfere in politics with the yes, no vote for our Aboriginal referendum stuff. And homosexuality is high on the lines of many airlines. Where do you draw the line? Elton John. Yes, Elton John is a guy that our dear recently departed brother, Joe in Texas, he knew him. He knew Elton John when he was married to a woman, because now he's more famous for being married to a man. And look what he said. There is nothing wrong with going to bed with someone of your own sex. Now, this is a man who the Queen, before she passed on, organised for someone to be awarded to. People should be free with sex. They should draw the line at goats. Do you see his words? Now, I didn't translate that. That's what he said. The line. Now, the line used to be man and woman only after you're married. Then in the 50s, the line shifted down to sex before marriage. And then the line has shifted to homosexuality, and Elton John says that's as far as you should go. Draw the line at goats. I'm sure Elton John would draw the line at murder as well. Where do you draw the line? Why do you draw it there? The real issue that we have to address here in the brief time we've got left before our last question time is, do you have the authority to draw the line? Does the government have the authority to draw the line? Fiscal policy, finance, economics, morality, schools, education will all involve this question. What is good for the population? What is good for the country? Where do you draw the line about what is evil for the country? Who has the authority? So did you draw the line there? Now, many Christians I know will draw the line there. Many Christians, sadly, and you heard me say that is a moral judgment on the Christians who say sex before marriage is okay, the ones who go to church. It's a moral judgment on the bishops who are making a noise at the moment. Premier Radio had a news report today on the bishops are demanding homosexual marriages in the Anglican Church. Well, I'm telling them they're wrong. But why do I draw the line above there? Why do I draw it above sex before marriage? Why only sex after marriage? And by the way, mums and dads who are listening, make sure you talk to your kids about this. Otherwise, they'll learn it from the internet. Otherwise, they'll learn everything wrong from school textbooks, from Elton John's example. He's a hero. He's fabulously wealthy. Don't you want us to be successful? Sorry, Elton John does not have the right to decide where the line goes. Neither does the Queen anymore. Neither did she have the authority to authorize an investiture for this guy to make him a knighthood, etc. Did you draw the line there because of Jesus? Because I did. Because in Matthew chapter 19, he says, haven't you read back in the beginning, God made them male and female? Elton John and all these others, their line is God does not have the right to draw the line. He has no authority because he didn't make the man and the woman. He didn't invent marriage. Now, can you see the moral clash we're entering into? It's got to do with where do you think we came from? Who created us? When I first started ministering in this area, one of my first sermons was on Matthew chapter 19, because divorce and remarriage was becoming a serious issue 40 years ago in the church. I tell you what, the moral issues have gone way beyond that now. But the answer to that question is that the divorce and remarriage are becoming serious issues because people don't believe God's rules. In the beginning, he made them male and female, therefore a man will take a wife. And all of the Bible's teachings on a man not divorcing his wife, on a man not divorcing his wives. Oh, you see, there's only one reason ever given in the New Testament. Perhaps you better look it up, because God does authorize divorce, but for one thing only. It doesn't necessarily mean he authorizes remarriage, but you better check that. That's not what my subject is about at the moment. My subject is, where do you draw the line? But this does raise that question. Elton John, Charles Darwin would not recognize the authority of Jesus Christ because they don't recognize that he is the creator. You see, in my wedding sermons, in my marriage sermons, I would always remind people about who Jesus is. New Testament teaching, because it matches the Old Testament. In the beginning, God. Which God? In the beginning, God made the heavens and the earth in 6 days. Jehovah God. By the time you get the New Testament, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was, let there be light. The Word was God. The Word became flesh and dwelt amongst us. This Word is Jesus Christ. Do you realize the God of the Old Testament is the God of the New Testament? Yes, we don't want to touch on the Trinity today because some of you get totally sidetracked already. It's so important you stick with this. In the beginning was the Word. All things are made by him. The Word was made flesh and dwelt amongst us. This Creator God is Jesus. Now, I had a simple line many years ago. If you want your marriage to work, follow the Maker's manual. If it's not working, then find out where you went wrong according to the Maker's manual. Yes, I used to have people come. This is from particularly some of the more happy clappy churches. I remember one man coming and saying, oh, I've become a Christian. My wife isn't a Christian. And my pastor has said, I can get rid of her. He'll get me another wife. Really? I remember Paul saying you do not divorce your partner just because they're not a believer. Find out what God's word's rules are, and you see he's got the right to draw the line. So challenge time to you when you're trying to figure out what evil is. Do you accept the authority of the triune God who is the creator, who came as a savior, whose name is Jesus, who is coming again to judge, do you accept his authority to draw the line? Because you see, at the moment you say, I get away with it. Elton John's got away, he's got awarded, he's got fame. But there is coming a time when he will stand before a holy, righteous God who is coming back to judge. And he will discover he failed. He actually crossed the line. He had no authority to do so, and he will have to bear the penalty of his own sins. Do you realize if you're going to be a Christian and preach the gospel about God's love, Glenn's got a few things to say about that just to finish off today, that you can't compare that as to how valuable it is until you talk about God's right to judge. And this God is Jesus, and his double right to judge deals with the fact that he was willing to pay the price of our transgression, our stepping across the line, of our trespass, of our crossing into a property we were not authorized to be in, of our evil and our sin. He was willing to bear that penalty. But you see, the importance of that is he never sinned. And the wages of sin is death. So he wasn't dying because he was a sinner. He was dying because he chose to die, and he therefore was dying for your sin, for my sin. And without that, you won't understand the whole of the gospel at all. So hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, the gospel begins in Genesis chapter 1. It becomes absolutely necessary because of Genesis chapter 3, where we crossed God's line. Now, you can argue, was it an apple or was it a pear? The ones that Doki Doki seem to love sending to us. Was it an orange? Was it a bitter lemon? What was it? It doesn't matter. The point is God, the creator, who is Jesus, had the authority to actually draw the line. And better still, he had the authority to decide that his death alone, as a sinless one, would actually be sufficient to pay the price.